Dave, well, first with Clayton today, I know last outing he was, you're being mindful of kind of the pitch count. Where does that stand now as when it comes to his outing today?
So he threw, I think, 5 and 67. So I think that, to get him to 80, 90, I think is fair. But that's the caveat is stress, long innings. So, we'll see how the game plays out. But I think he's in a good place with the extra day too.
As you reflect on what just the rotation has looked like since the All-Star break, how have you seen just the guys really get back on track at this point in the season?
It's the 100th percentile as far as outcome after the break. You just never know how teams are going to respond to players after 4 or 5 day layoff. I just think that we've come together really well, and the additions we've had at the break, they've kind of meshed seamlessly. It's just good of the bullpen is in as good of a state as they've been in. I think our starting rotation, I can say the same. Guys are understanding their roles specific to each ball game. So, I'm excited. I feel good, and for Clayton to take down another start is also a good thing.
Dave, you guys have the best record in baseball, June and August, in the last 10 years. What do you think that happened? What do you think just every year seems to kind of gel there that this time?
I think that particular stat is specific to depth. I think that we're very mindful of usage, workload with all the players. And, sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable when you're using guys potentially that, aren't your best guys. But I do think that in a long season, that wins out. And I think that's why I think that every year, when you look at August, September, we start to ascend, really ascend.
You've said that this is one of your favorite teams. Has this been your most challenging years managing, just with the injuries and I guess the roster at the beginning compared to where it's at right now?
No. I think that it's been my most exciting. I think that challenging is a term that you can define in a lot of different ways. With the injuries, young guys coming up, I think on the surface it's challenging, but as a coach, that's pretty exciting because you get an opportunity to teach young players, assimilate them with the club. Other years where the dynamic is just not the same, I would argue that's more challenging than when guys are pulling for one another, playing just to win. And so that, for a coach, is everything.
Who has been maybe your biggest advocate in that clubhouse or an extension of you this year to get that message across?
I would say Mookie, Freddie, Jason, Rojas has probably been the guys that have kind of taken a step maybe out of their comfort zone to make sure that everyone is buying into what we're doing.
What is a step out of their comfort zone?
Well, I think that players like to just focus on themselves and their performance, which they should. But when you can take a step back and appreciate decision making that I have to make, coaches make, that's in the best interest of each individual and the team collectively, that's not always an easy conversation from player to player. But those guys, to their credit, have supported me, the coaches, to the end, to the max.
Are you seeing that show up, like we talked about last night, like how guys have performed in some of those pinch hit at bats or switching back and forth, when they have a couple days off because there's a righty or lefty, just how they've handled all those dynamics?
There's no player that doesn't want to be the guy. But there's also a part of being a good teammate and realizing that somebody else might be a little bit of a better option in that particular moment, and to root on your teammate. And our guys do that across the board.
Watching these guys, I guess, in a sense, step a little bit out of their comfort zone. I mean, you are in a position where you get to see them every day. How do you just see them evolve as individuals as well, not only as men on the field, but off the field as they step into the space it's kind of the basic maturation, to be honest.
Yeah, it's been fun because I really believe being of high character and high baseball IQ, wanting to learn, knowing what a good teammate is, it makes you a better baseball player. It does. And to see our guys, we've got a good collection of those guys. And I think that we've raised the bar on not only talent, but just character in our organization. And now it's a new bar, and it's going to be hard to realize as far as guys coming in. But I like the way that the bar has been raised.
When did you first start to see them like step out of their comfort zone? Kind of like talk about Mookie's willingness to sort of bounce around the infield, Jason being willing to be pitch hit for Freddie playing every day. Like, when did you start to see that start to present itself? Was that spring or?
Numerous examples. I heard a little incident where Jason, called a player out and said, "We don't do things this way." Rojas, after a series, got the guys together in a hitters meeting and said that it was after the Royals series. We got our butts handed to us in Kansas City, and he came back and addressed how we need to do the little things, play with more urgency. I appreciated that. Jason Heyward getting pinch hit after hitting a 3-run homer in Baltimore and not saying a peep. Those are things that for me, Lance Lynn coming along and take the ball from him in the 5th inning, and he says, "Whatever you need, I'll be ready to go my next turn." And so those things that when you get veteran guys that do that, everyone has to follow.
What's next for Walker right now? He faced hitters again this week, right?
Yeah, he faced hitters 2 days ago, which was Monday. So I think he goes on Saturday and does the same thing.
Do you know beyond that, like how many? He said he was going to need a couple.
I don't know beyond that. Joe's good. Joe's going to throw a pen on Friday. So if that goes well, I'm hoping that goes well. We'll see where we go from there.
Dave, some of the guys have talked about that birthday party Max threw for his daughter in Texas and Dallas on that off day, and how that was kind of a good team building. Have you seen some changes after that as well? You were talking about some leadership and guys coming together.
Yeah. I think that off days are far and few between, and so for guys that don't have anything, any skin in the game, or kids involved to still show up, says a lot about what they feel about each other. And I do think that manifests itself, when we get to the ballpark.
You mentioned last night saving bullets with Bobby. Is that going to be enough for 10 pitches here, 15 pitches there, as opposed to having to take some time off?
I think so, because I mean where we're at, we're in a good spot with Bobby. I think that the question is, how do we continue to remain in that position? So, an inning here, absolutely, I think that could work.
How far down the line did the conversation get about possibly shutting down? How much of the last couple starts kind of giving you guys the confidence, like, all right, he's in a good spot, he's sort of turning?
I think it's a larger conversation as far as medical, player performance, coaches, front office, and everyone getting together and talking and coming to a consensus that it's good to keep him going.
As you like that? If you shut him down for a week or more, you may not get the same performance.
That's right. Yeah. And you have a young player who's clearly got some rhythm, confidence, and managing pitchers' workload, as I said last night, it's not an exact science. And so to kind of just take it off the table that he should be shut down for a couple weeks with nothing that supports that, it just didn't make a lot of sense to all of us. So as opposed to having him continue to run out there and gain information, gain experience, and see where that takes us.
And run into this a few times in the past. If you clinch early, does that change the equation?
I don't think so. I think that for a young player that potentially could be, as he put it, a count-on guy, you got to get experience, and the only way you do that is pitching or taking at bats. And so this is a crash course for Bobby, because we potentially could be counting on him in the postseason. So he needs as many repetitions or innings as he can have, in my opinion.
Has that picture changed at all? Is his role in the postseason starting to grow in your mind?
Yeah, but it's up to him to continue to make himself a bigger part of that picture, because other guys have had track records which should be of importance and of value, but you can't argue the arm talent. So now, it's up to him.
Did you like that Bobby Yarbrough piggyback last night? Is that something you might use again in the future?
I did. It's difficult because Bobby's important, Ryan's important. You got to be mindful of, if you are going to cut Bobby short, for it to make sense. And I don't always want to be in that position where you're doing that premeditative all the time. In certain cases it makes sense. Last night it made sense.
Okay, I come with that one for you, but in addition to sort of all the sacrifices you guys are making, does baseball lend itself a little bit to kind of having a psychological contagion, like when things are going good, it spreads?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like anything, but I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but I do think that if you have high character guys that care for one another, that play the right way, I do think that manifests good play and also fends off some of the lows. So the lows, the valleys aren't as deep or as long.